Hey guys, it's Fred and Sheila, Hatfield McCoy Museum, fredmccoy.com. Sheila's behind the camera.
Hi guys, hope you're having a great day.
Guys, I want to make a fast video. Somebody sent us a video that's, I guess, been done the last couple of weeks on Randall McCoy. And people had done a video, and they're talking about Randall McCoy and his life and things that happened, and some of the things that's just totally off the wall. They're just totally off the wall and made up, or made up in books from the past. And the pictures, they were talking about, didn't have that many pictures of Randall McCoy because so they made up some and so forth like that. And that's what's happened over the years on the Hatfield McCoy history. People makes up a story here, makes up a story there, finds this picture, and this is this person, this is that person, and finally down the road another 30, 40, 50 years, somebody believes that's who it is, and that's where we've got to today. And what gets me is, it's funny because I guarantee you'll be able to after this, because the people I'm sure will do some research, but I guarantee you could go to these people right now and say, who's your great-grandparents? Who's your great-great-grandparents? Okay, who's your great-great-great-grandparents? They probably don't know their great-great or their great-grandparents, much less great-great-great. They don't know their own family history or who they are, but they know mine. They know the Hatfield and McCoy history, the Hatfield McCoy ancestry, the people that was related. I can't tell you anything about these people's families. I can't tell you where their great-grandparents are at or what they did in life. I certainly don't know. I don't think they probably know, but I certainly don't. How could they know from 1861 to 1914, Randall McCoy's life? He's born in 1825. But 1861, when the Civil War was heated and got underway, is when Randall McCoy and Devil Anse Hatfield's turmoil began.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know how these people can do that. And some people say, Fred, why do you get upset about it? Well, it's my family. It's my ancestors. It's my ancestors. On both sides. I'm Hatfield and McCoy.
Yep, they're both.
This is an account of stories passed down with documented facts. Documented on paper or in books. You know, Rio Hatfield put on his video. We've got a video like that on the other side that plays of Rio Hatfield and Alan Hatfield. Alan Hatfield's the one that shot Hubert Bay McCoy. Shot him in the back of the head and killed him dead. And Rio Hatfield says in an interview that he's doing on the radio station that his grandfather was shot and killed, and he said it's in a well-documented book, and it's on the Washington Post. It was on the Washington Post because Rio had given the story to Dean King, nationally renowned author, and he had put it in Granta magazine on the internet, and they picked it up from the wire, and it was in a well-known book because Ron McCoy, the one that had filed a suit against John and Barbara Vance, had Rio Hatfield's story in his book. How Rio tells him that his grandfather was shot in the back 3 times. And he shot and killed the McCoy. That's the well-documented book. It's his own book. He wrote the foreword in that book, and he wrote that, and Ron McCoy wrote his story. So just because you read something in a book or on the newspaper or see something doesn't make it true. And that's what I always tell people when they say, I saw this. Does it make it true? Does it make it factual? I seen a person's book that was posted on there. when he first come out with his book, he was going to name it 3 or 4 different names. He says there was no feud, and then he had to put the feud on there because you can't write a Hatfield McCoy book without mentioning feud if you want to sell the book. So it's more important to sell the book than to stick with his beliefs that there was no Hatfield McCoy feud. And I've done this for years and years and years. I've done this for decades and decades and decades. Sheila and I. Randall McCoy was a real person. He was a real person. He wasn't a AI generated person or figure that walks around. That's not what he was. He wasn't a made up character. He was a real human being. Had 16 children, him and Sarah. Owned over 300 acres of property on Blackberry Fork. And that was their life until the Civil War came. He was a farmer. He was a farmer. There's never been proven, and we've got hundreds of videos on Hatfields and McCoys. There's never been any proof whatsoever other than what a Hatfield descendant through the years wrote and said, oh, they were in court together. Randall McCoy had sued Devil Anse over property. Randall McCoy had sued Devil Anse over timber. Perry Klein, Randall's cousin, had sued. Perry Klein wasn't no blood relation to Randall McCoy.
That's right.
But that's the stories you hear. That's the stories that's gone on for years and years. They're not right. And it seems like the more that you try to correct them, the more other people try to. The Civil War is what started the hard feelings between Randall McCoy and Devil Anse Hatfield. Devil Anse Hatfield deserted and ran during the Civil War. And it caused hard feelings because my great-great-grandfather, Uriah McCoy, and Randall McCoy was taken POW. Everybody in that unit was either killed or taken POW after Devil Anse Hatfield and his family members and others had deserted and run off. They run off. What's that George Clooney movie where that guy, ROTFF or whatever he says, he ran off. That's what he done, he ran off. And it caused hard feelings. One story was a stranger had come to the door. It's completely fabricated. This person says there was a person that come to the door asking directions, asking before the cabin burnt, wanting to make sure they had the right house. Guys, we're talking about Pike County, Eastern Kentucky, Southern West Virginia, newly formed West Virginia, 1863, I believe. Said a stranger had come to the door and Randall wouldn't go to the door and answer because he didn't recognize him, wanting directions. How do you know he's wanting directions if you didn't open the door? But who gets directions? There's a house every 5 miles. Again, he owned 300 acres, so there's not a house within 300 acres of him. You're talking about the mountains. You're talking about a path for a road, a horse and buggy, mostly horses. Asking directions. Probably not 100 homesteads on Blackberry Fork. All up and down Blackberry Fork, probably wanting 100 homesteads from one end of it, from 119, what's now 119, all the way to 319. Remember, people owned huge acres, huge farms between neighbors. Story has passed through generations, yet related. And the first time I've ever heard this story, this person on the video said, this story's been passed down through generations on top of generations. Really? Researched the feud since I was in the 5th grade. Never in my life heard that story. And the person that is coming from what I understand, is actually from California. Randall took a job that nobody else wanted. Said he took a job on the ferry, back and forth, across the river there in Pike, because nobody else wanted it. Moving folks from one side of the river to the other without a word. He didn't speak. You know, it's funny because we used to get upset, Sheila and I and different family members, because one author wrote, not just one author, there's several, because these authors, that's frauds, they write off of each other's books. They can't write their own book. They have to copy what the other author said. And the other author, knowing that author's made it up, but they follow suit. So the more they say it, the more people write it, more people believe it. It's not true, not correct, but it's the way it works. Because over the years, it's always been said, Randall McCoy never shut up. You couldn't get on the ferry and take it from one side of the river to the other because Randall McCoy wouldn't shut up. He rambled on all the time talking about how dirty Devil Anse had done him, how his family had been killed and so forth. Now, this person says for the first time in history that we've ever heard, which is fine. I'd much rather hear that he didn't say a word than he rambled on. But why can't we just tell the truth? Why can't we just say that life went on? We've all lost family members through death and mishaps and accidents, and life goes on. It doesn't stop. Did it stop with him? Not at that point. You got to understand, Randall McCoy got, just like his father, it's even on Randall McCoy's death certificate, senility. He got dementia. He got Alzheimer's, old timers, just like his father. Altina Roller wrote in her book one time and said, Daniel, Randall McCoy's father, wouldn't work. All he done was laid around. Heck, he was 85 years old when she's talking about this. 85 years old, laid around. Wouldn't do nothing. Him and his wife got divorced after 70 years of marriage or whatever it was. We've done a video on it. Who gets divorced after 70 years of marriage? Dementia people. Dementia people that think something's going on. Not thinking right. She couldn't see that. She couldn't look through what she was talking about and see that, well, what's causing this? Why would a man of this many years get a divorce? Why would a man of this many years not work? His working days was over. He's old. He'd look up, he'd tighten up the rope. When a Hatfield got on the ferry, Randall McCoy would tighten up the rope and just look straight ahead. He wouldn't even look at the Hatfield. Guys, Preacher Anse Hatfield, my great-great-grandfather, baptized Randall and Sarah McCoy.
Yeah.
Preacher Anse Hatfield was related to Randall and Sarah McCoy. Preacher Anse Hatfield's daughter, Nancy Hatfield, married Uriah McCoy's son, Asa McCoy. Nancy Hatfield and Asa McCoy. That's my great-grandparents. They had Philip McCoy, my grandpa. Hatfields and McCoys got along before the feud, during the feud, and after the feud. There was only a select few that was involved in the feud. Hatfields and McCoys lived on the Kentucky side of the Tug River, and Hatfields and McCoys lived on the West Virginia side. It wasn't Hatfields on the West Virginia side and Kentucky was McCoys. My great-great-grandfather and grandmother, Polly and Preacher Anse, lived on the Kentucky side. Basil Hatfield and his family, Floyd Hatfield, Constable Floyd, Bad Elias. All these Hatfields lived on the Kentucky side. There was a Valentine Hatfield that lived down at Buskirk on the Kentucky side. I know it makes for good videos. I know people wants to have content for videos. But, and they can say, well, this is for entertainment purposes only. This is for legends. This is, guys, when you say these things, people believe it. When you're talking about historical figures, and you say something, people want to believe what you're saying is true, and they believe it for the truth. Hatfields rode that ferry boat as much as McCoys or anybody else. There was Kentucky Hatfields. Randall McCoy didn't get along with West Virginia Hatfields, Devil Anse's family, and Devil Anse. Hands that never stopped shaking. This man survived. He didn't run or desert. This person was talking about Randall McCoy's hands never stopped shaking. Well, if you watched any of our videos, I don't know if it's Parkinson's or if it's dealing with my back surgery that I had because I got my My shimmer's about the same time. I don't know what it's related to. Could just be old age. My hand shakes. It don't make me completely mental. But talking about his hand shaking, older than his years. Randall was 40 years old when he, you know, guys, this person said Randall looked older than his years. Randall looked older than Devil Anse, Hatfield, and Ellison and all these people. Randall was 40-some years old when he went into the Civil War. Devil Anse was 21, 24 maybe. Randall McCoy was an old man when he went into the Civil War. Not counting serving 2.5, 3 years at Camp Douglas, Illinois, the toughest prison camp that there was. Wow. Ashamed of his own reputation and deserting West Virginia Hatfield to try to reverse the story. Over the years, Devil Anse Hatfield has always been ashamed of his reputation, where he deserted. After he's seen Randall and Uriah and all these people come home heroes, they served, and he's embarrassed. He's embarrassed because now Randall and these people's telling, Devil Anse ran. These guys deserted. Well, it says it on his Civil War records over there. It's not a story, it's proven fact. Civil War records don't lie. During the Civil War, nobody knew Randall McCoy and Devil Anse Hatfield were going to be famous one day for fighting this big feud.
Right.
They had no reason to lie or put something wrong on their Civil War records. They didn't know them. They were nobodies. And when it says Private Anderson Hatfield, that means he was a private. Doesn't mean he's a captain. It means he's a private. And when it says he's 5'6" tall, it means he's 5'6" tall. Not 6 foot, 5'6". And people have wrote these stories into history through the years, and people's believing them. Says Randall took the job to stay away from people. Stay away from people. You take a job on a ferry boat. What's a ferry boat deal with? That's like taking a job as a taxi driver. I'm going to drive this taxi. I sure hope I don't get no fares. I hope nobody calls me. I don't like people. I don't want to talk to nobody. How you going to make a living? He made a living by hauling them back and forth across the river. If nobody rode that ferry, he didn't make no money. So he's just out there. See, that don't make no sense. Sometimes, guys, you got to use common sense when you're listening to Hatfield McCoy history, because these people will feed you a line, and it's like they're seeing how much they can give you. It's like that Hatfield McCoy Facebook page, Hatfield McCoy Feud Facebook page. It's nothing but malarkey, in my opinion. It ain't in my opinion, it's in my research. Malarkey. And these people says, great history. That's not history. That's a story made up for you to read. And I see you back there.
Okay.
Says Randall McCoy went to live with his grandson, Melvin. Now remember that, because that's going to come up again. Says he went to, and just stand by the riverbank, watching the river move by. And it shows a man standing by the river. Guys, listen. Sheila and I, we go fishing. We stand and watch the river go by. We stop on bridges, riding motorcycles or driving cars or anything. We see a bridge with an overlook. We stop and get out.
See how fast the current's going.
Doesn't make us mental. Was it just Randall McCoy that liked watching, soothing, relaxing, to hear water going by, flowing by? Does that make you special needs? Return to old shack to stay now and then. Some people recall seeing an old man, like people from Blackberry wouldn't recognize him. There's going to be an old shack somewhere that's going to come up famous, I believe, is what we're looking at here. That's what you got to read into. I see you grinning, but I'm right. I'm usually right. They wanted to say that Jim Vance was brought here to bury here, and they don't even know where Jim Vance is buried, but they were going to try to make another historical stop, so they tried to start a story. Same way with this. There was an old cabin somewhere, an old shed, and it's been said that an old man was seen around there, but nobody knew who he was. But yet later on in the story, this person says everybody on Blackberry knew Randall McCoy when he come back. Here it says that there was an old man. Some people thought it might have been Randall staying at that old shed. So somebody's got an old shed they're getting ready to come out with and say, this is the shed where Randall would come to. Sales pitch, someone wanting to say they got the old shack. The one place where he could return without being watched. Laughable. The old building was the one place he could return to without being watched. Without being watched. He's out in public running a ferry in Pikeville without being watched. The place where his cabin burnt down and his children killed, but says he could return to the one place. That's the most dangerous place he could have went. Was coming from Pikeville and coming back to Blackberry Fork. That's closer to Maitland. That's closer to Logan. Rosanna bore a daughter, and she named after her mother, Sarah. Actually, Sarah, Rosanna's daughter, was named Sarah Elizabeth. Sarah after her mother, and Elizabeth after her aunt who delivered the baby. Remember, Rosanna went to stay with Uriah and Aunt Betty McCoy. Aunt Betty McCoy. Uriah and Aunt Betty McCoy are my great-great-grandparents. Their son, Asa McCoy, married Nancy Hatfield. That's my great-grandfather. So, Rosanna named her baby Sarah Elizabeth. Sarah after her mother and Elizabeth after Aunt Betty. Short for Elizabeth is Bet or Betty. Everybody called her Aunt Betty. Says Johnsy went on to marry 16-year-old Nancy McCoy. You know, they're always bragging on Johnsy Hatfield, ladies guy, all this and that. Well, he's also a child molester. If you look at the history books, if Nancy McCoy was 16 years old, Johnsy was in his 20s, you would consider that child molestation.
In these days and times.
Especially, even in this day and time. You get a man up in his 20s and fooling with a 16-year-old child. That's a child molester. But they want to talk about how Johnsy had went on to marry Rosanna. Guys, I'm going to tell you something.
I went on to marry Nancy.
I'm sorry, babe. Thank you. Went on to marry Nancy. I want to tell you, Sheila and I have covered this many a time in our videos. Johnsy was married 4 times. He's buried by himself beside of his mother and father in Logan County, Sarah Ann. Rosanna was never married. Fell in love with one man in her life. Johnsy, love of her life. Only man she was ever with. And she's buried beside of her mom and dad in Pikeville. True love? If it weren't love, it was poison. LOL, pure nonsense. Anything for a story. It says it was pure poison.
No, it was stated that Johnsy and Rosanna's...
Randall had said that their marriage was poison. Their relationship was poison.
Yeah.
Never heard that. Never in our lives have we ever heard. Guys, we knew family members. I had family members that grew up during the feud and knew the feud history and passed it down. That we knew that was the truth. Not what's been written 100 years later by Altina Waller, or I won't even name some of these other ones. She's over there doing this stuff. But it's sad. It's sad when a person knows the history and knows what was said, and then people come along and make this stuff up. Said Randall said it was pure poison. We've never heard that. We know Randall McCoy. Everybody knows Randall McCoy didn't like Devil Anse and his family, the Hatfields, because of the Civil War and because of his brother and such. But no, never have we ever heard that. Would a family member not hear that before somebody from California or away from here? Randall escaped into the woods barefoot. Guys, somewhere in here, and we've done videos on top of videos, there was a newspaper article in 1888 after they burnt the cabin down, and 2 more Randall's kids were killed, and Sarah was beat and left for dead. There was a newspaper article, and the newspaper article said Randall McCoy escaped harm, escaped injury. Now there was an author, a Hatfield author, a descendant of Cap Hatfields, that wrote a book later on, and he says Randall escaped into the woods. He took the escaped part from the newspaper article, and he says escaped into the woods or into the corn crib. He ran and hid in a corn crib. That's the story for years and years. It wasn't Randall that was running towards the corn crib. It was Calvin Hatfield. Calvin McCoy ran toward the corn crib to draw the fire away from the cabin.
Right.
Randall's trying to get these kids out. Every time somebody would run out of the cabin, the Hatfields would shoot them.
Yep.
So he's trying to draw far away from the house because the cabin's almost in ashes. They have to get out. They shoot and kill Calvin. They done shot and killed Alifair.
Yeah.
Randall McCoy, do you think a Civil War veteran, a Civil War hero, a POW prisoner
Exactly.
that been through what he had is going to leave his grandchildren and family behind and run and hide in a corn crib or in the woods?
No.
If you believe that, then you might as well turn this video off, because I'm not going to convince you of nothing. If you believe that. Now, if that story was told about Devil Anse Hatfield, you could believe it, because he's a proven chicken. He's a proven coward. He ran in the heat of battle. Randall McCoy, Uriah McCoy, never ran during the heat of battle. They're proven. What's that woman saying that, oh brother, we're out there, you're certified?
Bona fide.
Bona fide. Yeah, they're bona fide. You look at a person's past and see, a person's past often predicts their future. And this person says Randall escaped into the woods. Well, also says he moved in with his son and then with his grandson, Melvin. Melvin, guys, it says it through here about 6 or 7 times. Melvin. Melvin was Tobert's son. Tobert was one of the 3 that got killed at the pawpaw trees. Mm-hmm. Sarah and Randall McCoy took Melvin and Cora. Mm-hmm. Thank you, babe. And raised them.
Yeah. Up until that point.
Randall McCoy's going to run off into the woods and leave his grandchildren in the house? Did he? Because if he did, it don't make sense. Because all through that story, this person says that he went to live with Melvin, and that's a true story. He did. He was living with Melvin in his older age. Melvin took care of him. He got the groceries. He got the coal in. He made the supper. He done everything for Randall McCoy. Why would he do that for, guys? Does it make sense to you that Randall McCoy, you've got Melvin, little Melvin, and Cora, along with Fanny, still in this cabin that's on fire, that's burning down. And Randall McCoy hightails it out there and goes and hides in the woods. Leaves them in there to die. But yet later on in life, all through Randall's life, older age, even up to where he's senile and beyond going, Melvin McCoy took care of his grandfather. Why would he do that? Does it make sense to you? Don't to me. I lit the fire, but I couldn't. This person says, Randall McCoy said he lit the fire, but he couldn't put it out. Randall McCoy never lit no fire. Randall McCoy served in the Civil War, came home, hard feelings at Devil Anse Hatfield. Devil Anse thought everything was going to smooth over. Just, hey, let's let bygones be bygones. Forget about me running and deserting. Don't tell nobody. Okay, I killed your brother. Don't worry about that. He says, I lit a fire that I couldn't put out. This person says. Look at all these quotes. It's like the one quote that they say about Devil Anse. Said Cap Hatfield was a 6 foot and 108 pounds of heck. Mm-hmm. And then it says Devil Anse. Said Randall McCoy said Devil Anse Hatfield was 6 foot and 180 pounds of hell. That's nonsense. Randall McCoy's Civil War record's over there. He's actually 6 feet tall. He was tall.
Yep.
Devil Anse was 5'6". Do you think Randall McCoy looking down? I'm 5'7". Man, 6 foot. I've got to look up at. Randall McCoy's going to say that Devil Anse was 6 foot and 180 pounds of heck. Who believes that? That's written into history, guys. Ellison Mounts was hung. Ellison was not a Mounts. Ellison was a Hatfield. His mother went on to marry a Mounts. He was never adopted. The stepfather didn't even like. He had to go live with Devil Anse and the family because the Mounts guy didn't even like Ellison. He was a Hatfield. He was the son of Ellison Hatfield and Harriet Hatfield. Ellison and Harriet were first cousins. First cousins. That's why supposedly he had a mental issue. Close kin. Rosanna buried beside of her parents. Melvin cared for Randall all of his life. Senility found him wandering. No one thought it was peculiar when Randall McCoy got married in his late 70s. Dementia, senility, divorced, split up. Describes an old person walking around. But everybody still recognized him. Before they said he could go to and hide in a shelter, a cabin, a shed, and nobody recognized him. But yet now everybody knows him. 5 times Melvin's name's mentioned. Who buried his daughter there? Person says that Roseanne and her dad never spoke again, never got along, never done. Really? Who buried Sarah McCoy on Deal Cemetery? Who buried her? Randall McCoy buried his wife there. Randall McCoy buried Sarah on Deal Cemetery when she died. Who buried Rosanna beside of Sarah when she died?
Yeah.
Randall McCoy, her father. Her father. He didn't bury her in an unknown grave somewhere. He didn't bury her away from where him and Sarah was. He buried his daughter beside of him and his wife. But yet you'll hear these people, mostly from the Hatfield stories that was told, books that were written. They were the first ones to write any books, and people copied and followed along. There's a picture on this video, guys. There's a picture with 8 or 10 people, and it's got these names. Never heard of them in our lives. McCoys, never heard of them. I don't know if the person's trying to act like it's Randall McCoy and his family. If it's trying to, all through life people have done that. You know, a lot of people says, why did Devil Anse have so many pictures and Randall didn't have any? First of all, it took money. First of all, Randall McCoy was more worried about feeding his 16 children than he was being a narcissist like Devil Anse and taking pictures of himself or having an artist draw a picture of him. Randall McCoy had a family to feed. So they didn't take a lot of pictures. What pictures they did have, what belongings they did have, were burned up in the cabin fire of January 88. They burnt Randall McCoy's whole home up, killed his children, beat his wife. They didn't take time to save pictures or save anything. That's why there's no pictures. Now, there's one story out there that was wrote years later, and they said, Randall McCoy, there's no pictures of Randall McCoy because he burned them up in the fireplace. He resented them. Why would he? That's even in the 2012 miniseries, Randall Drunk. Randall didn't drink. Drunk, running into trees when he's out here fighting. He didn't drink. Why would they make a person belittle him and want to dishonor him like that? From a man that made moonshine, a man that drank moonshine, a man that killed people, a man that everything that was about Devil Anse that was bad, they turned it around because Devil Anse ran in the Civil War. They tried to say Randall McCoy ran out to the woods or to the corn crib. They tried to equal things out in life because they were writing the books. Don't know their own ancestors' names, but they know mine. People title things of legends and stuff thinking they can get away with saying, and they can get away with it. Until maybe someday they'll say something until somebody can follow suit and then say, hey, now prove this. You said this, prove it. Not through a document, not through a book, something that's been written, fabricated, fictional at the beginning. Prove what you're saying here, because this is our families you're talking about. What if I went around and talked about some of these people's families, just done some minor research and found out that this one done that or went to jail for these charges or this or that? Who is alive today that's told these new discoveries? Because the person says there's some new discoveries. New discoveries 150 years later? I'm not going to go on. I've got more here, but can you see what time you're on there?
3540.
This is an account of stories passed down with documented facts, documentation on paper and in books. Entertainment. This is not entertainment. This is fabrication of history. Fabricated history. This was a real person in the Civil War. Asking for directions, like he's on I-75 and I-40. You went to Blackberry, Kentucky. 5-6 homes up and down through there, and you're going to ask directions on where you're at or where you're going. This ain't modern day time. I heard the guy say one time he's showing a video of the replica cabin on Blackberry, my great-great-grandfather's replica cabin, where my grandfather was born out back in another little small cabin that Nancy Hatfield and Asa McCoy lived in. And this guy's doing a video and he said, some people say this cabin is haunted. Wow. It's a replica, guys. It's not I see you. Not a real cabin, it's a replica. But he got so into the story and just making things up as he went that he forgot that it was a replica, and he's trying to tell people. Some people says this cabin's haunted. The cabin was just built 20 years ago. Okay. Guys, all I can tell you is don't believe everything you see on these YouTube videos. Don't believe everything you hear people say or write in books, and especially on Hatfield McCoy Facebook pages. I see you back there. She's cutting me. You got anything to say?
No.
I didn't figure you
No,
did.
I'm good.
Thanks, guys, for listening to me. I'm sorry if I hope I didn't get on a rant. And I know we've done videos on Randall McCoy. We've done videos on Hubert Bay McCoy. We've done videos on the lawsuit, the false, fake publicity stunt peace treaty that was done in 2003. Mm-hmm. We've covered all that.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us.
All right. Hi guys, hope you're having a great day. Please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.